I am back for day two, another live event. Tomorrow is the last day, so I hope everybody tunes in. There's always a bit of a lag time whenever I go live on LinkedIn and YouTube, especially on LinkedIn. I just need to make for sure that I am live. Normally, I receive like a notification ping on LinkedIn. So I will wait, let's see here, a few minutes. And there it is. Okay, welcome everybody to day two. I have new followers again, morning people. So I like to do LinkedIn Lives every month, kind of like on the business side, on things that I'm learning and are doing within my business. And I like to share most of it with, people that are interested or some, gaps that I see in the industry. My name is Alicia Moore, and I am the owner of Clinical Science Research Solutions, and I'm also the founder of I Am Research and Wellness Foundation. We have partnered with CREO. We're certified CREO partners, and we are also Woman Minority Business Enterprise Organization certified, and we are going for our WOSB and national certification. That creates another pathway to bid on government contracts and hopefully partner and get contracts from Fortune 500 companies. So not only am I working on building clinical research in Sikeston, Missouri, I'm also working to open up my own clinical research site in Sikeston, Missouri because of the lack thereof. And we are actually in the process of training our first doctor in my PI, Principal Investigators Academy course. It's a 12-week course. He already went through the foundational course, and now we're going through the meat of the program. So this is what we're doing. But today, uh, in addition to what we talked about yesterday, we are into day two, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So today we are going to discuss what kind of authority content and institutional messaging as a clinical research entrepreneur. What should you be posting on LinkedIn? What kind of mind frame or shift should you have whenever you're getting into the B2B and B2G procurement spaces? It's a totally different ball game versus just you going for a job and just kind of speaking inspirational posts on LinkedIn or inspirational um, information on your resume. It doesn't work that way in the procurement space. The buyers are looking for suppliers that are demonstrating you're reliable, you're stable, financially stable, you are operationally ready to take on contracts. In addition to, you are seen as a reduced risk. You're able to, whatever risk issues or risk concerns that they have, you're able to demonstrate that you can lower those risks, right? As a business owner, based upon the services that you have to offer. So today we're going to differentiate between B2B and B2G messaging and how sponsor CRO focused messaging B2B is quite different than the government procurement messaging B2G. You will learn how to develop authority content aligned with institutional buyer logic. You use evidence, transparency, compliance language to appeal to institutional buyers. We're going to learn how to translate regulatory knowledge into business development language. You're going to turn regulations and guidelines into tangible benefits and trust signals. You're also going to learn how to build a repeatable authority content framework. You need to learn how to create content categories that answer the question, what institutional risk does this reduce? Because it's going to help the buyers, not necessarily, it'll ease their mind. They're going to know that they are investing in a supplier that is not going to cost them thousands, if not millions of dollars. You just don't want to be seen as a high risk, right? And the way you do that is you provide metrics and show your past performance and what you're capable of doing in your capability statement. You're also going to learn how to reduce, again, perceived vendor risk. Use documented processes and measurable metrics to lower a buyer's perception of risk. Again, as I mentioned before, If you are a clinical research entrepreneur, site owner, CRO leaders, if you are actually certified as a minority woman business enterprise organization, woman-owned small business, and we bank suppliers. This is for you. If you're a consultant in the clinical research space, this is also for you. If you are an executive responsible for growth, partnerships, or procurement readiness at any stage of institutional positioning, if you're here, comment in the chat and let me know like what your goals are as far as being a business owner. And do you plan on getting these certifications? And if so, if you're working on it, what stage are you in? Or if you have landed contracts, let me know in the comments. Institutional buyers, they buy trust and not hype. They're not looking for you to create an inspirational post. Oh, I see a typo here. They're not looking for you to create anything of inspiration within your capability statement. They just need straight facts with data proving that you know exactly what you're doing. So yesterday we discussed how your B2B, even B2G, they use several different channels to actually show whether to see if you're consistent in your messaging all across the board, whether it's in your capability statement, whether it's on social media like LinkedIn and YouTube. They need to make for sure that you are saying what you said, whatever you say you have to offer. Let's say if you're on YouTube, as I mentioned before, you're talking about how to make ice cream, that's part of your business, but then you get on LinkedIn and you talk about how to become a site owner. That's mixed messaging and it's very inconsistent. So you're going to lose the potential buyers before you even get started. 70% of chief procurement officers, they state the risks have increased within the past year. And 43% reported that overall risk has increased significantly since 2021. The idea of it is you need to be transparent. Storytelling is just not enough. Anybody can tell a story, but if you are able to back it up with real metrics and prove that you're able to deliver those services and you're able to maybe help the company save money. Let's say, for instance, if a CRO is looking to, I don't know, they have some goals for the for the next 4 or 5 years. And whatever those goals are, if you're able to pick one because it's part of the services that you have to offer, and you can demonstrate that you can help them either increase revenue or decrease risk or decrease the amount of time that they have to spend training principal investigators, then that goes far beyond storytelling. These buyers, what they want to do and what they will do is do a lot of cross-checking on your metrics. They want to see documentation and they want to see the controls, like who is in control over the business. So like 90% of executives surveyed by Harvard Business Review Analytics Services, basically the storytelling part. So 55% rated ethical and commercial considerations equally when evaluating suppliers. So that's another thing too, whenever you are thinking about getting into the government contracting space or B2B, B2G, ethically, from an ethical standpoint, they need to make sure you're in alignment with their ethical rules and regulations, and then you're not just ordered. I mean, they need to see consistency, they need to see transparency. And again, that way they're not investing in someone that's going to cost them their reputation and yours too, and then cost them money and our clients, future clientele. Let's think about the trust that signals institutional buyers. What do they look for? Again, measurable outcomes and performance indicators. So buyers usually evaluate 13 content pieces, eight from vendors and 5 from third parties. They are looking for verifiable outcomes from various resources or sources. I'll get it out in just a second. And I can't stress enough risk mitigation. I guess it's dualettes. survey found that 89% of procurement leaders cited cost and spending risk. You know, no company, they're investing or setting aside millions, billions of dollars for small business owners, for certified business owners every single year. So yes, they have a very tight grip and very regulated rules on how you should either conduct your business. And of course, you need to demonstrate that you are at a low risk. And you can, you know, if there is some risk, let's say within the space, how do you mitigate those risks? So your content should speak to controls, quality management systems, corrective action processes that will reduce these risks. You need to have, you know, maybe capital plans in place. That's with any business that you have. What's another trust signal institutional buyers look for? They look for process, transparency, and documentation. You have to maintain internal controls and retain all records to demonstrate that financial operations are conducted properly and that the entity complies with laws and grant terms. You don't need to be seen embezzling money. I think that's like one of the simplest ways of putting it. You know, you don't need to be known, or you don't need to be mismanaging the finances, or even a previous history of mismanaging your financing, and also a previous history of not documenting what goes on within your business. If you didn't document it, it never happened. And that is like a golden rule that I learned eons ago. And it's the same thing still applies today. So they look for documentation. I will say, whenever you're going for your certifications, they require you to upload a lot of documentation. That includes your CV. That includes, let's see, like bank headers, to make sure if you're saying you are the owner of Clinical Science Research Solutions, well, that bank statement or the header, it will have to show that you are the owner, or else, you know, it becomes fuzzy, or you're going to be disqualified from getting those certifications. What's another thing that they require? Meeting minutes, and sometimes it depends upon your organization. They require your birth certificate, marriage certificate. It's a lot of documentation. And especially if you are a minority owned individual, let's say African American woman like myself, they need to see proof that if I'm going for a, you know, woman owned business enterprise certification, they need to see proof that I am who I am and the nationality. So it's a lot of documentation that you have to prove, and a lot of checkpoints that you go through to ensure that there's, you know, you're providing transparency and documentation. And whenever you progress into, you know, RFPs and the procurement systems and all those things, the documentation part, it doesn't stop. They still need to see proof that you are being transparent and you are abiding by the laws, whatever the laws are, as it pertains to either getting grants and or contracts, or being awarded clinical trials at a clinical research site. Infrastructure maturity is another one. So pre-award surveys under the Defense Contract Audit Agency evaluate whether contractors have adequate accounting systems and internal controls. The criteria include adequate financial resources, which that's something we discussed yesterday, because if you're going for these contracts, you cannot just solely rely on the money to come through within 2 weeks or so. Although I was listening to, attended a webinar today, they said that they've gotten better with issuing out the payments, but still, you still need to have some kind of continuous revenue coming in, because, you know, these things, they take time. Critical or criteria include adequate financial resources, satisfactory performance record, and the necessary organization, experience, and accounting controls. Another thing that they look at, we touched on again yesterday, is financial stability signals. For NIH Phase 2 awards, reviewers may assess whether a business has the financial ability, I'm going to say, to execute a multi-year project. Some programs require a pre-award survey of accounting systems and financial status. And just to kind of note, I will get to the questions. If anybody has any questions, I'll get to them at the end of the class. So why is storytelling not sufficient? Well, again, anybody can tell a story, but it's going to be definitely very difficult to tell a story and you don't have the data to back it up. If you're lying about what you're doing, you're going to eventually get caught in your lies. So regulated industries require documented processes and audit trails. Procurement officials must justify awards based upon compliance, cost, um, is the cost reasonable, and risk mitigation, not an emotional narrative. Without any metrics and documentation, storytelling fails to clear due diligence checks. Again, if you're telling a story, you need to base it upon facts and get out of your emotions. They're not looking for you to tell a lifetime story. They're looking for you to say, okay, I have trained so many investigators, and 90% of them have gone on to be successful site owners. And, it just goes on and on and on. So if you have trained those, and you should have trained those doctors, you should have documentation as to how they've been trained or what they were trained on, because in this industry, there's a lot of risk whenever it comes to PI not being trained. And we've heard all the horror stories, but the thing of it is that you telling the story is just not enough. You have to have qualitative and quantitative data analysis to prove that whatever services and products you have to offer will help solve a problem for the buyer. Let's think about what is the differences between your B2B and B2G messaging. I have like a couple of examples here. So your B2B messaging is mainly focusing on, since I'm in clinical research, sponsor CRO logic. I will go on to say that a lot of your sponsors or CROs, like in pharma, they do recognize MWBE certified companies, small business owners, that's qualified as a business owner, small business owner, and then there's several others. So there's almost kind of like a blurred line there, but just to kind of reel it back, if you are not into the certification, this is the messaging focus based upon sponsor CRO logic. Example, enrollment, efficiency, and site readiness. Sponsors care about metrics like time to start and query rates. Data quality and operational scalability. You are to demonstrate systems that ensure protocol compliance and handle multi-sites at scale. The technology integration and ROI timelines. Show how your platforms integrate with e-clinical systems and deliver on-time results. Again, the language is a lot different than your B2G. Let's see, evidence. Dolet reported that 84% of organizations experienced a third-party incident in the past 3 years, meaning sponsors look for vendors with robust controls to avoid delays and data quality issues. So what is your B2G messaging? What is that focusing on? Again, you're looking at NACE codes, those types of terminologies, set-asides for small businesses. You're going to see words like, let's go into the compliance and responsibility standards. The FAR. FAR requires that a responsible prospective contractor has an adequate financial resources, the ability to meet delivery schedules, and a satisfactory record of integrity, and necessary accounting and operational controls. It's still kind of maybe B2B, but FAR is mainly B2G. Set aside eligibility. The U.S. Small Business Administration states that contracts valued between $10,000 and $250,000 are automatically set aside for small businesses. Contracts above those thresholds require at least 2 small businesses that can perform the work. Hub Zone WOSB require documentation of market research and certification. Again, I mentioned NACE codes and standard sizes. This is not something you're going to necessarily see in B2B. However, as I mentioned before, a lot of pharma companies are looking for small business owners or MWBEs. So you're going to have those NACE codes. But if you're not into that, then that's a totally different category, and your content and your messaging is going to be a little different. It's still going to be different even if you are in the contracting certification space, but there is a difference. So NACE codes and size standards. Contracting officers designate a NACE code, NACE code, associated size standard. Appeals must be filed within 10 days of solicitation publication. Cost and audit readiness. The FAR defines a cost as reasonable if it does not exceed what a prudent person would incur in competitive businesses. The contractor bears the burden of proof. Pre-award surveys evaluate accounting system design and internal controls. So let's see here. Oh, hit the wrong button. So what are some things to actually, like a B2B post, what does that actually entail? So let's talk about the hook. Most site activation posts are fluff. Here's our activation ready control stack. The body of it, describe how standardized delegation logs, training documentation, and QC checks cut time to site initiation visit by X%. You're going to provide metrics such as average days to first enrollee. Emphasize how these controls reduce delay, enrollment, and data cleanup. Your call to action will be, if you're activating new community sites, DM me for our readiness checklist. Now, what would a B2G post look like? Let's say the hook is federal buyers don't award contracts based on passion. They award based on responsibility and compliance. So the body of the post will state something like, state that your accounting system has been evaluated by the DCAA pre-award survey and it meets SF 1408 criteria. Highlight adequate financial resources and segregation of costs. Note your set-aside eligibility, say for instance, if you are WOSB certified, and alignment with your NACE codes. Mention how your written sub-award agreements addressing monitoring and financial conflict of interest policies and data sharing. Your call to action will be, contracting officers, message me for our capability statement and compliance documentation package. Whereas if you are working on opening up a clinical research site, you're not going to tell the sponsors, well, email me or message me if you're wanting to look at a capability statement. However, again, there's those blurred lines. You know, pharma they do set aside money for WOSB or MWBE. So it's a little different. But again, if you are completely separated from the two, then the messaging is going to be quite different. Whenever you are posting on LinkedIn or you're on your social media platform, what does the authority content framework look like? Because again, institutions, they just don't buy expertise, they buy predictability. They buy the outcomes. So for example, you're looking at a regulatory expertise versus regulatory predictability. This is what you should not post. I'm so excited to see the updated NIH peer review framework. You see, this is, goes on to talk about passion. They don't care about your passion, right? We may be passionate about it, but you need to add more content and to your post. It's so important for investigators to understand rigor and feasibility. Make sure your team stays compliant. That's not going to signal to the buyer like, oh yeah, you are, you know how to reduce risk, and I want to buy into you because you just know what you're talking about and you're passionate about it. Well, it fails because it sounds informed. I mean, it's showing awareness. It doesn't reduce but it reduces zero buyer risk. And then there's no evidence of internal systems. Whereas if you post this with NIH's simplified peer review framework, emphasizing importance, rigor, feasibility, and expertise and/or resources, we mapped out each factor to documented internal controls. And then as you can see there's a list of bulleted points. This post is more authoritative post showing, again, that you know how to reduce the buyer's risk. And you've implemented systems that's going to help you mitigate or, maybe prevent risks that would come up. Whereas if you did not have, these systems in place. So for example, study feasibility checklist tied to enrollment projections. We have pre-submission scientific rigor audit process audit, resource allocation matrix assigned to protocol demands, documented, the word documented, PI oversight verification prior to submission. Regulatory alignment you should be able to demonstrate it, and it's not just implied. Let's see here. That was not supposed to be covered. I'm going to go back and look at that. Let's see here. So, whoops. So an example, quality culture versus risk controls. What not to post. Thought leadership tone. Quality is everything in clinical research. Strong oversight and communication are key to successful trials. Okay. It fails because it's vague, it's inspirational, it's not measurable, no operational detail. And let me go to Canva, and I'm going to have to straighten that up. What to post. Okay. All right. So what to post? Given that 84% of organizations report third-party incidents, we implemented vendor qualification scoring prior to onboarding. See, there's that reduced risk factor there. Quarterly oversight documentation reviews, quarterly oversight, delegation log reconciliation checkpoints, financial disclosure re-verification before study milestones. So quality is not just a cultural language, it is control and a control architecture. So again, you post content that demonstrates that that it's risk reduction language. It just can't have a thought leadership tone. That's not what buyers are looking for. Okay. So an example of number 3, what to post and what not to post. This one is signaling like a resume type of thing. Oh, I've worked in clinical research for over 10 years and I understand the regulatory landscape deeply. Okay. Why does this fail? Personal credibility statement, no operational visibility, no predictability indicators. What you should post is infrastructure visibility. So sponsor perception is shaped by operational transparency. Our PI oversight structure includes defined delegation authority thresholds, proportionate oversight review intervals, documented adverse event escalation pathways. There's that documentation again, pre-audit internal mock inspection process. You're looking at risk. How are they trying to reduce risk at the site? Leadership in research is measured by structure and not tenure. At least it should, should be. So what are some key strategies for effective content creation? Connect the post to service lines, risks, and controls. So avoid random postings, like structure content using a formula. Avoid random posting. Structure your content using a formula, the service line, risks, metrics, and control. So for example, site readiness, identify risk, select metrics, and then name the controls. The other one is reflect capability statement language. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. It's my understanding that a lot of times business owners, whenever they create their capability statement, it says one thing, but then whenever you go into like the DSBS, it kind of says another. Or whenever you go in to apply in the supplier portal at pharma, one of the pharma companies, or at Wells Fargo, I mean, the language, what you're saying, it doesn't line up. It has to line up. So ensure content aligns with statements like regulatory compliance by demonstrating operationalization through specific processes. Reference federal standards. Use authority content to cite official criteria like FAR responsibility, NIH compliance, to showcase regulatory knowledge and align with institutional expectations. And incorporate metrics. And really in your resume, you should be incorporating metrics too. They tell you that. But again, on a more, I say, higher level, you include measurable data, activation timelines, audit performance to build buyer confidence, trust, indicating stability, which can shorten sales cycles. That is it for today. I'm going to see if anybody has any questions. And again, this is 30 minutes and I want to show comments on stage. Let's see. Oh. Someone asked, how do I get into today's sessions? I'm online right now. Okay. I don't think I have any questions for today. No comments. And tomorrow we'll be talking about day 3. Day 3 will be, and it's the last day, using LinkedIn as a business development and partnership channel in clinical research. And let me go online because sometimes I can see comments on LinkedIn and for whatever strange reason, I can't see it on the live, which is weird. All right. So that is going to all right. Oh, he managed to log in on time. Okay. All right. Well, if nothing else, today is short and sweet, and I will be back tomorrow to discuss more B2G, B2B content as far as government contracting and how to, get started and be successful and then eventually moving on. Let's see. Yesterday, we could see 180 plus participants. I didn't see that yesterday. Sometimes whenever, um, let's see here, I didn't create another event, like a pre-event. So I just went live today. Let's see here. Let me see what you're talking about. Hmm. Yeah, what people normally do is they click attend and they don't necessarily click register. Like I have the Zoom link, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually attending the webinar. But what I have found is they go back and look at it later on. Yeah, that's because I didn't create it on LinkedIn. So once this video is done, it's going to actually post on LinkedIn. I didn't pre-schedule it. So and sometimes I think some people, they just don't realize a lot of this takes work, getting everything posted and created and thumbnails and your content and everything else in between. It's a lot of work. So today I just went live. I didn't bother to pre-schedule anything. I just know that I'll be live again tomorrow. I will say I don't know if this is going to live rent free or free forever. It just depends on my decisions on this, but I might be allowing this to stay free for a while, and then what I'm going to do is upload it into Thinkific, and it won't be free anymore. So it's best for people to catch the live now, because eventually I'm going to start converting over all my events and masterclasses into paid. It takes a lot of work to prep these. Any questions? And Narish, thank you for joining again. This is day 2 for you. And it could be timing too. Some people are getting off work and it may be bad timing, but I know it's good timing for me. I work 7 to 3, my day job, and then I've got 2 hours to, get my son and just all kinds of a rat race. But if nothing else, I'm ending today's session and I will see you tomorrow.